How's it going, everybody? I have some more Magic for you today with a Golgari Season deck. This is a Golgari deck playing Doubling Season, which was reprinted for Foundations. This enchantment, which is kind of the foundation of this deck, playing a fairly common kind of build of Golgari, allows you to create double whatever tokens you would normally generate, as well as twice as many 1/1 counters on anything that you would create that would gain additional counters. So by that I mean, any of your planeswalkers are going to come out with double loyalty whenever they are played, as well as anytime you do their plus ability, it should double how much they gain. In this case, all of them would only gain 1 necessarily, but that would still double to 2, and all of them will come into play with the ability to do their ultimate as soon as they're played. So I'm playing this as more of like a Planeswalker control version of the deck. I'm not playing any demons in this, which are really prominent in most Golgari decks, but I've got Liliana the Veil with the instant ability to do her ultimate, allows you to separate all of your opponent's permanents into a pile, or 2 piles, and they choose one to sacrifice, meaning you could potentially wipe them out entirely of like their land or something like that, depending on what they have on board. We've got Liliana Dreadhorde General, which is fantastic to begin with. If you -9 this creature or this planeswalker, then your opponent only gets to keep 1 card of each type. Meaning, like, if they have a whole bunch of creatures, like an elf deck, they only get to keep 1 elf. If they have a bunch of land, they only get to keep 1 land. Same with enchantments, planeswalkers, so on. So, Liliana's ultimate being immediately castable upon entry is really devastating, and is a really good planeswalker in this deck. Something you don't often see in this deck is Vraska. Vraska Betrayal's Sting. I will say, her ultimate does not work the way that people assume. Vraska's ultimate says, if target player has fewer than 9 poison counters, they get a number of poison counters equal to the difference. So her ultimate ability would normally give your opponent 9 poison counters, meaning it would not be a 1-turn kill in this deck, because Doubling Season only says that if an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, create twice that many tokens instead, and if an effect would put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many counters on that permanent instead, meaning that Doubling Season does not double poison counters, because your opponent getting poison counters is not a permanent you control. People often overlook this and will instantly surrender as soon as they see Vraska. She is very devastating, and most people don't even play her in this deck because they don't necessarily completely synergize. I have Vraska in this more for her 0 and proliferate ability, because she can additionally grow all of our Liliana planeswalkers, as well as herself, making them more sustainable. But it's also really good removal for your opponent's creatures and things like that, which really matter. This is a creature control deck very heavily. We're playing Anoint with Affliction, Go for the Throat, Cut Down, Liliana of the Veil, the Dreadhorde General, -4 on the Dreadhorde General. Each player sacrifices 2 creatures of their choice. Can be entirely relevant to potentially just wipe your opponent's board, depending on what they're playing. Liliana, obviously, making your opponent sacrifice with her -2. Could just get rid of any creatures that you're running up against. This deck can also easily run things like, well, I have Gix's command in the sideboard, but you could also just run Deadly Cover-Up, I think is the one I'm trying to think of, where you wipe out your opponent's, well, you wipe out the entire board, and if you have things in your graveyard that you can exile for 6 mana, then you can exile it from your opponent's deck entirely. That's another common card to see in this type of a deck. You could run that instead of Vraska. You could potentially run it sideboard. It works really well with Up the Beanstalk because it is a 5 mana cost board wipe, so that is also totally playable in this kind of a deck. I am not running it because Dreadhorde General has a very similar ability, as well as like Liliana And if they get to do their ultimates, they're much more devastating since they can potentially wipe out your opponent's land and recast ability as well. But we are running, like I said, a lot of removal if necessary. We've got Cut Down, Anoint with Affliction, which is one of the best removal cards in Standard right now, being able to hit anything up to 3 mana value. And if you can start getting poison counters on your opponent with Vraska, you can use it just to exile anything altogether. It doesn't just have to be mana value 3 or less. We've got Go for the Throat, which hits most things most of the time. You will occasionally run into an artifact deck, so it can be relevant in that way, but we've got plenty of other removal that should be hitting those things. We've got Terra Sunder, which specifically can hit artifacts or enchantments without having to do the kicker, but using the kicker, you can also get rid of your opponent's planeswalkers, creatures, what need be. Up the Beanstalk is a pretty foundational part of this deck. Most things, everything past Liliana in this deck is a 5 cost. So we've got 4 copies of Doubling Season. I've got a few different kinds of arts for it, so that's why it's separated. But we've got Doubling Season, we've got Overlord of the Hauntwoods, we've got the Dreadhorde General, and we have Vraska. All of these things are consistently going to be a 5 or more mana cost, meaning that Up the Beanstalk will get to trigger pretty frequently off of these. Now, it's worth noting, Overlord of the Hauntwoods, when it enters, even like whether you impend or otherwise, it creates your mana tokens. These Doubling Seasons will double those mana tokens, meaning you can get multiple of them upon casting Overlord. I do want to say, though, you don't want to get the impending going on Overlord of the Hauntwoods if you already have Doubling Season out on the battlefield, because doing so will make it come in with more of the I don't even know what they're called, the little suspend counters or whatever. The things that tick down for it to become a creature, it will double those counters on it, meaning it will take longer for it to come out as a creature. So you should be cautious of this and try casting it as a creature rather than impending it while Doubling Season is out on the battlefield. That pretty much covers most things. We are running Fountain Port in this. Any fish tokens you create also get doubled with Doubling Season. Any zombie tokens you create with Liliana Dreadhorde General will get doubled. So it does more than just copy, or double, I should say, the 1/1 counters on your Planeswalkers as well. We do have a sideboard, pretty standard sideboard for Golgari, in my opinion. We've got some Dreams of Steel and Oil, Duress, things like that are really helpful against your control matchups. We've got Scavenging Ooze. In this deck, I use it instead of Ghost Vacuum. Scavenging Ooze would get double 1/1 counters while Doubling Season is out on the battlefield, which is really fantastic if you are exiling creatures. But it also just works as a really good graveyard hate card, regardless of what you're exiling. So that's why I have it in here. I really love the Scavenging Ooze, so I'm happy to have it here. We've got more Terra Sunder in the sideboard if your opponent's very heavily running artifacts or enchantments. Choking Miasma, which can be really good early to exile your opponent's creatures. For example, I know elves are still pretty relevant right now, things like that, and can be useful in a lot of those more aggressive matchups too, because we are running a lot of removal, so having more for those matchups can be really helpful. Playing against mono red, you're going to want something like Choking Miasma, maybe more than you would want like a lot of your really expensive planeswalkers, so there's that. We do have Gix's Command, another potential board wipe type card that can be really good for also getting our Hauntwoods or Llanowar Elves back from the graveyard if we want, or even just pumping something for the win if we're really close. The +2 1/1 counters on target creature and lifelink can be relevant with Doubling Season as well. We've got a couple of Planeswalkers in sideboard with Vivian Reed and Nissa Ascended Animist. Both have the ability to target enchantments and artifacts with their minus abilities to destroy them, so that's really why they're in the sideboard primarily. Obviously, Nissa also has the ability to do a -7 for an overrun, which can be done even without Doubling Season. And also, I don't think Vivian's +1 is entirely relevant in this deck, but you would get to potentially do the -8 instantly if you have it out with Doubling Seasons. So that's something worth keeping in mind also. I will be playing this in Best of 1 Standard, like I normally do for my videos, just because it's a little bit quicker, doesn't keep the video quite as long. But, so, I hope you guys enjoy this. This is more or less my version of this deck. I'm sure you've seen probably some other players, other content creators making versions of this deck as well, but this is the one that I've been running and that I've been enjoying, so hopefully you guys like it and you will enjoy the games. Alright, opponent gets to go first, which is disappointing, but we do have Forest, Llanowar Elves, Swamp up the Beanstalk, and Overlord, so we've got a really good opening here, even if they kill the Llanowar Elf. I think I'm going to pitch one Llanowar Elf. Now, we will go Overlord of the Hauntwoods here over up the Beanstalk if the Llanowar Elf survives. It looks like it will. We'll go ahead and get rid of Vraska first. Now we're looking to see land and Doubling Season. Okay, here we're going to be getting rid of Anoint. Our opponent's playing primarily discard, so our removal isn't going to be as important. Another Bandit's Talent means we got to get rid of Liliana as well. Pretty fine with our current situation. We are up to 5 land now if you include the Llanowar Elf, and our Huntwood will be coming out into play soon. Our opponent's still just making us discard things, so they're not playing anything dangerous yet other than these Bandit's Talents. Go ahead and get another Overlord out and draw. We now have a very dangerous board for him to just ignore anyway. If we don't get something that we immediately want to play, like one of our Planeswalkers or Doubling Season, I'm probably just going to hold it in hand with this Llanowar Elf and start attacking with my Cottage. Yeah, it's just a land, so we don't care about that at all. Swing in with what we got. Now we've got food to start healing with, and 2 cards in hand. And 2 Hauntwoods attacking, plus the Cottage means that they are in danger. Because even if they can kill 1 creature, they're not going to be able to hurt us with 2 cards in our hand, and if they deal with one of our cards in our hand, they're still going to be getting hit by everything else we have. Yeah, so they just lose here. Pretty easy win. We didn't get to do our Doubling Season strategy, but this deck can be very dangerous even without it. Hauntwoods is a very strong card. We had one impending from pretty much right away, getting us going. Restless Cottage is a fantastic mana sink in a discard deck matchup because you don't want to start playing things in your hand. Llanowar Elves absolutely got us going faster with things like the Overlord, so this played out really well with our opponent not having any removal and being entirely discard focused. We didn't get to play our Vraska or Liliana, but it just came down to they were too expensive and I needed to get set up first. We were about to have a pretty substantial amount of land, even just from attacking with the Overlord too, though, so that was relevant also. Alright guys, we get to go first here, and we have some Blooming Marshes. I think that's good enough to keep. I would like to have things like Llanowar Elves, Overlord of the Hauntwoods, up the Beanstalk, but without any of that at the moment, at least we have some good untapped lands to get going. We've got removal in case we need it. Carrot Cake. I'll probably still cut down this token just to make sure that they can't copy it on the next turn. Well, they wouldn't be able to copy it next turn, but I want them to have to dump as much resources into that as possible. Overlord's a very good draw for them. Really wish we had it. We're one land off from being able to play Vraska, two from being able to play Liliana. Looks like our opponent's also going with Doubling Season, but they're doing it in a token fashion. Okay, really fantastic target for Anoint with Affliction. Could go with our own Hauntwoods now, or we could go with Vraska. I'm inclined to go with the Hauntwoods at the moment. Gets us an additional land, it still gets us the card draw the same way Vraska would. Now we've got the land to play Vraska without having to pay black for the Phyrexian. And we can get Liliana out now. Soul Partition actually helps us out here, because I was debating what to do about Liliana, but now we can just do the minus without very much repercussions whatsoever. I think Vraska might still be the right play here, though. May block with Llanowar Elves. I don't think there's any good reason not to use it. We're really just looking to protect our Planeswalkers at this point and get as much value out of them as possible. Okay, they used Get Lost on Vraska, which is still fine, because now I'm just going to go with Liliana. Now we have our own Doubling Season, which is quite nice.
I do hope you make this battle exciting. Time to get my
This Overlord is going to take forever to stop being impended, because they played it after the Doubling Season. That's something I warned you guys about in the intro. I would like to get Doubling Season going, so what I'm actually going to do here is play Doubling Season, and probably just create a zombie as a blocker. We do have another Vraska and Liliana in our hand, so I'm not terribly concerned with it. And now we get two zombies, meaning he can't just kill one. He had Soul Partition to answer our Doubling Season, which is sad.
You've reached an undead end.
Got enough here where I think I'm okay with pumping this for one. I'm okay with an Up the Beanstalk, at least it's a card draw. Gets us a card draw from Liliana, which is nice. Gets Doubling Season in our hand even faster.
You get used to the smell.
Or beanstalk, I should say. I'm sorry. Now, ideally, we would want a way to answer the Overlord. I think I'm still just going to go doubling season here. And probably minus Liliana. I can't minus Liliana this time, so that sucks actually. We're probably going to lose her if he has a way to deal with the zombies. I'm going to keep up my 2 mana for the Anoint in case he plays something I want to get rid of with it. Get us another card draw. Another doubling season, which is pretty nice, actually. Okay, so we're going to use Terra Sunder on their their doubling season. Very important to get that out of the way. I think I'm going to go ahead and play Vraska here. And I think I'm going to do her minus ability, -9, and demonstrate that it isn't a one-turn kill. See? And the reason that I do that is because I don't see a way for him to attack my planeswalkers at this point. Best case scenario for him, he can wipe the board. Worst case scenario, he can't, and I use Vraska's 0 ability to kill him next turn. So the opponent's playing a different variation of this deck, like I said. Mine is just a little bit more impactful because I'm playing it as like a Planeswalker control deck.
I do quite enjoy necromancy.
And we win. So, like I said, Vraska's -9 is not a one-turn kill in this deck like it would be if I was using that talent card, but it can still get your opponent to 10 poison very quickly in just a 2-turn clock, and having it out with Liliana Dreadhorde General creating 2 zombie tokens per turn, really devastating. As a matter of fact, Liliana was already back up to 8 after the proliferate from Vraska, so very good. We could have gone ahead and played our other doubling season to go a little bit more crazy, but it just really wasn't necessary at this point, and we were going to be able to keep getting more Hauntwoods tokens going for land. If we attacked with the Restless Cottage, we were going to get multiple food tokens from doubling season, so it was all looking pretty good here at the moment for us. But this is, like I said, a whole nother iteration, a Selesnya version of this similar deck. So you can see it's fairly popular, but I just had my own variation that I've enjoyed, so I wanted to share that. Alright, our opponent goes first. We've got Restless Cottage, so this will be a slow start for us, but I'll still try it. Hopefully we do at least draw one more land so that we can get Hauntwoods going. So far it's looking kind of bad in that regard. Hopefully we draw one on this turn. Okay, so we can at least get Hauntwood going. That puts us up to 4, so we're good with Terra Sunder. If we can draw one more land, we can get doubling season out. Demolition Field's not really a big deal, but it does mean... Okay, we're getting shuffled. I still think that's totally fine. I hope it actually puts a land on top. It is a land, but it's a tap land. Our opponent's going to be disappointed to see that we don't really play creatures in this deck. Not really. I mean, we've got some options, but I am going to go ahead and Terrace under this too, just because it'll be annoying to deal with eventually. Okay. Doubling Season, obviously, is the first place to go. And then we have another one we may get into if they don't start doing something soon. Okay, nothing from our opponent, so we will go with another Doubling Season. Gets our Overlord out that they need to deal with now. Looks like our opponent's a kind of creature control style deck, much like we are, but they just aren't doing anything because of it. Let's go ahead and play Vraska and go for the -9. It won't be a one-turn kill on our opponent, but it puts them on a one-turn clock. Okay, and they don't have an answer for it, and I didn't think that they would. Best case scenario for them is they have Get Lost to try and kill our Planeswalkers. Well, maybe they would have some kind of exile effect or something as well, but right now they don't have very many options, and next turn I was going to be able to just kill them if they didn't kill Vraska. So, another pretty easy win. There's our 3 games for the day. You got to see why I include Vraska in the deck at least, why she's so dangerous, and the mechanic that most people don't realize, which is she can only put them on 9 poison on the turn she comes out. In this deck, which can be seen as a detriment, but I still think it's a card very valuable to play in this deck. Because I'm playing so focused on other Planeswalkers as well, she works so well in a Super Friends deck because her Proliferate allows everybody to get more 1/1 counters. I could have easily on this turn played Liliana and put them down to 1 land instead of using Vraska's ultimate, but this put them on a 1-turn clock that they'd have to try and figure out some way to deal with her, and I just didn't think they had it. And based on the fact that they left, they really didn't. But I hope you guys enjoyed this deck. I should have one more video out this week. I'm kind of running dry on decks to play and interact with, but I've got a couple more. I'll try and keep this next week, maybe with a couple more decks, and then I'll probably be playing some other games for the channel until the new standard set comes out to make things spiced up a bit again.